evening and welcome to the Greg Tompsett Football Show. Tonight, we will whip around the NFL and give you a quick recap of all of the day's action. We will start right in with the Thursday night special. We saw, I'll say surprising. I think I'm not shocked the Broncos won. I'm surprised they kind of boat raced the Saints in the way that they did. This was never a game, 33-3 before a garbage time touchdown late in the game and the Saints' only touchdown. Obviously, this is with Spencer Rattler and not Derek Carr, but I expected this to be a little bit better of a game. So Denver, weirdly, kind of hanging around here and going to be, I guess, in the playoff mix. If the playoffs started today, they'd be the first team on the outside looking in at 4-3. The Colts would have the last wild card spot if the playoffs started today. So Denver kind of establishing themselves as part of what's going on. If you did not see the Buffalo Bills dig themselves a hole and then slingshot 34 unanswered points back on the Tennessee Titans, make sure you check out the post-game show with Aaron Quinn and myself. We had a great time talking about it, but this was certainly a tale of two halves to historic levels. The yardage differential in the second half with the Bills and the Titans, 328-58 with the 27-0 score. So pretty crazy. In a game that I shared with my Cleveland friends and neighbors, that I didn't realize that they were going to have to sacrifice Amari Cooper to the football gods to be rid of Deshaun Watson. But in retrospect, the end results kind of worked out for everybody. So I'm okay with it. Deshaun Watson was carted off with a apparent Achilles injury, which I was talking with producer Chris pre-show. I don't know that we ever see Deshaun Watson start an NFL game ever again. This may be the last time we see him. No team is going to be interested in bringing him in, and the Browns now have their excuse to not play him again. So for their sake, I hope that it is Jameis Winston. Weirdly, there was some discussion that maybe it was Dorian Thompson-Robinson, although he threw 2 interceptions in relief before going out, and Jameis had to play as the emergency third quarterback and threw a touchdown. So we'll see where that one goes. The Bengals didn't look great here. They took the opening kickoff back, and then it was kind of a slow, ugly game late, midway through the third quarter. They finally got a little bit going and pulled away here. As Jameis came in, they were able to try to get themselves back into this a little bit. But Cincinnati got a much needed win. They're now 3-4 and squarely back in the running. They are now 1 game out of the wild card spot and certainly give themselves a shot here. A weird game. This game was 40-7 with Washington, but Jayden Daniels went out very early in this game. Marcus Mariota came in for this, so a fair amount of this game was with Marcus Mariota, which, kudos to this coaching staff, kudos to, just being able to create the kind of offense that could keep humming in that way. I didn't think Marcus Mariota was ready to do that after some of his final play that we saw in Atlanta and Tennessee. It just did not look like that guy was still there. So good for him coming in Jayden Daniels' stead. It looked like he got checked out, and at halftime, as the score shows here, is 27-0. I have a feeling if this is a closer game, maybe he comes back out and plays, but there was zero reason to push it. So we'll see what that looks like. I don't know Washington's bye situation, but maybe they have a bye coming up. Maybe Daniels misses a game or so. But he was giving people thumbs up and saying he was okay on the sideline in the second half. So interested to see where that goes. And again, a sneaky one. Washington's defense looked pretty legit here. They got a touchdown early on, but dominated this game. 2 interceptions on Dalton, and certainly in control, much better than what many people thought would be one of the worst defenses in the NFL. They've actually been solid, and they've had one of the best offenses in the NFL. So they're a deserved 5-2 and a deserved number 1 in the NFC East, which is pretty crazy. In another game I mentioned in the preview show, I can't quit the Rams. McVay and Stafford are legit. This game was with nobody at receiver. Tyler Johnson was his number 1 receiving target. He's had Kyron Williams most of the time, who's continued to have a really good game. But it's just Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay and a bunch of guys they pick up in the parking lot on the way into the stadium, and they keep finding a way to make it work. McVay did say post game that we will see Cooper Kupp on Thursday night, and it sounds like we will see Puka Nacua the week after. And I know they're 2-4 and have dug themselves a bit of a hole, but that NFC playoff race is going to be a mess, and I think these Rams are going to be heard from before the season is done. The Raiders have now kind of come back down to earth. Gardner Minshew back in at quarterback and still kind of a mess. This team is not going anywhere. I think they're going to have a new head coach, a new GM, and a new quarterback next year all together. So for our friend Greg Vorse, he'll be excited to know that they got a loss and head back down towards the draft goals that they'll have. Another game here that I think we were kind of hoping would end a little bit differently. This was a really poorly played quarterback game. You see between the two quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes and Brock Purdy, 5 interceptions. Brock Purdy had 2 backbreaking ones in the red zone, in spots to be able to score. Missed extra points, just a really poorly played game between 2 very good teams. Like the teams had played well. But the Chiefs defense, this was a bit more of the bend but don't break than we normally see from them. And the 49ers just kept letting them hang around in that sense. They continued to just make poor plays and make mistakes. But 3 interceptions by Purdy was just a backbreaker and the killer. So the Chiefs stay undefeated. Patrick Mahomes made some really clutch runs down the stretch, and the defense came up big with big plays when they needed to, even though the yardage was fairly balanced. They got timely turnovers in spots where they need it, and Mahomes made some really clutch runs when he needed to pick it up. So made up for one of his poorer passing days on the year, which, again, it's against 49ers defense. There's no shame in that. But the Chiefs find a way, and they now go to 6-0 in an impressive fashion. Some of the early game this morning, the Patriots and the Jags. This was one that was kind of funny because it started out similar to Bills Titans, where the Patriots started out 10-0, and I was like, oh, this is, I was, having thoughts of Doug Peterson being fired on the flight home, very Robert Saleh-ish, where he got embarrassed over in London and then lost his job coming back. But then the Jaguars just rattled off 25 unanswered to get right back into it, got a 96-yard punt return. And held on, later on. Drake May did throw a touchdown to KJ Osborne and looked okay. I think he looks like a rookie, but 26 of 37 for 276 and 2 touchdowns, plus 3 runs for 18 yards. They were not getting that out of Jacoby Brissett. So, honestly, I think this is kind of the best case scenario for the Patriots. Drake May has looked good, has shown flashes the last 2 weeks, but they've lost both games. So that's exactly what they want. They want to be able to draft a franchise left tackle of the future, and they're digging a hole to be able to let themselves do that. And right now, Drake May showing enough flashes for them to be excited about the future. So I don't love to see that, but they don't look like they're going to be a threat for much of anybody the rest of this season. One of the big games that did matter for the Bills earlier today at the 1:00 window was the Packers and the Texans. This game was a really good back and forth game. It's the game I had on the second screen most of the time. Trading blows back and forth. They exchange leads multiple times back and forth. Texans took the first lead. Packers answered back with the touchdown. Texans answered back with the touchdown. Packers answered back with the touchdown. Texans then kicked a field goal to bring it closer and then scored a touchdown themselves, missed the 2-point conversion. So just back and forth. This game ended up, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 lead changes in this game, just back and forth haymakers. And shout out to, I know, a lot of questions about his off the field, allegations and issues of why he was unemployed, but Brandon McManus comes in and makes a game-winning field goal as time expired for the Packers. So their fans are certainly excited about him coming in and being able to do that. They get a big, much-needed win. The Texans drop a second game, are now tied with the Bills. So obviously they have the tiebreaker with the head-to-head victory, but a much-needed loss in keeping that playoff seeding availability within play. A game that was just not close, but single-handedly because of Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley put this team on his back, 176 yards rushing, plus I think he had another 11 receiving, so 187 total yards for Saquon Barkley in his return to the Giants. And if anybody watched any snaps from this game, he ran with some very serious ferocity in being able to take it to the Giants and make sure that they know what they gave up by letting him walk. The Giants actually pulled Daniel Jones in this game. He was playing poorly. Post game, Brian Dable did say that they would be going back to Daniel Jones as the starter, but it was bad enough that they pulled him at one point in this game. Just an ugly, ugly game. And Jalen Hurts passed the ball 14 times, 10 of 14 in this game, but for a 28-3 win. So certainly took care of what was needed. And now, establishing themselves as, maybe the team more people expected early on with this win, although still second to Washington in the division. One of the best games of the day, similar to that Packers Houston game, back and forth between the Vikings and the Lions. Again, talk about, trading leads. This was a game of runs. So you had, the Vikings went up 10-0, then 3 straight touchdowns for the Lions. Some electric plays from Jahmyr Gibbs. He had just a crazy open field cut. They reminded me of that one Devon Achane had last year against the Bills late, where he roasted Jordan Poyer in the open field. Jahmyr Gibbs had one where just no human should be able to cut at full speed the way that he did on the 45-yarder that he had. It was gross, but they then rattled off 21 straight. The Vikings answered back, and at this point, it kind of seemed like the Lions were going to put it away. They went up 2 scores, up 11 points, but the Vikings came all the way back, took a lead 28-29, and then looked like they were going to hold on, but the Lions ended up with a really dominant drive at the end of the game to set up for a field goal, 8 plays for 44 yards, and set up for a 44-yard field goal as time expired. Jake Bates of XFL fame kicked the game-winning field goal and knocked the Vikings out of the winless or undefeated standings, and all the way from first in the division to now into the wild card. So, really important game for the Lions to be able to take that home. And Jared Goff looked fantastic. 22 of 25 for 280 and 2 touchdowns. The ball barely touched the floor against a really good Minnesota defense. So shout out to Jared Goff. Certainly really, really strong game there. Next week's opponent for the Bills, the Seattle Seahawks, took it to the Atlanta Falcons. This was a dominant game on their defense. A couple big plays by the offense. Kenneth Walker looked really good, but the Seahawks defense really, really played well and shut down an Atlanta offense that had been, really coming into their own and looking pretty good prior to this. Both teams are now 4-3, right there in the NFC wild card standings, but the Seahawks would be first in the division right now with San Francisco's loss, in Atlanta on the outside looking in from a wild card standpoint, even though they're tied from a record standpoint here. And we'll see. I know DK Metcalf got carted off. I haven't heard any reports of how serious his knee injury is, but we'll have to see where that one goes. Obviously, that would be a huge impact if he's not able to play against the Bills. A huge physical receiver like him makes a big difference. We'll be having Ben Baldwin. You guys know him as the computer cowboy, the red seeing eye with the cowboy hat on Twitter. The fantastic charts that he puts out. Aaron and I will be having him on the show on Wednesday night to break down Seahawks Falcons, and we'll probably get into his charts as well, because that's a lot of fun to talk about. The final game of the day today was last because it was just a pillow fight of a battle. The Colts technically beat the Dolphins in a horrible, horrible football game, 16-10. The winning quarterback was 10 of 24 passing. Tyler Huntley got injured and had to leave this game, so we ended up having Tim Boyle in this game at one point. The Dolphins took an early lead, 10-0, but then let the Colts score 16 points to end the game and put them out of their misery. They're now 2-4, looking for. It does sound like it's possible that we see Tua Tagovailoa possibly as early as next week. the Colts get a win to keep themselves in the running, they would be the last wild card game today, and we'll be getting Jonathan Taylor back, so they'll have some possibility to get some things going that way. We are at halftime of Jets Pittsburgh, and they are right now. The Jets have the ball up 15-13 to start the second half. We saw a couple big plays from Russell Wilson, but some pretty terrible quarterback play, and the same inconsistency the Jets have had all year, but against the Steelers defense. So not to be unexpected. We have a double header on Monday night, and I say double header only from the sense that there's two games. It's not actually back to back like a double header would be. One starts at 8:15 and one starts at 9 p.m. Who's in charge of that? Who said that was okay? Only one AFC team, so we'll be rooting for Tampa Bay to upset Baltimore tomorrow night, and then Chargers Arizona. Oh, sorry, my apologies. So the Chargers also an AFC team, so we'll be rooting for Tampa Bay and Arizona tomorrow night to knock off the AFC teams and help out the AFC seeding. But that's it for tonight. Obviously, some exciting games. We had a ton of fun talking Bills Titans, so make sure you check out that show with Aaron and I. But that will do it for tonight. On behalf of fantastic producer Chris Seth, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to the Greg Tompsett Sports Show, and we are out.